All right, hey, let's get started. So what we're doing today, we're making this film about Luke Bell, and we wanted to give people a little bit more context and information about the film, get to meet us a little bit, maybe whet their appetite for the potential to have drinks with us in the Kickstarter. You know what I'm saying?
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is introduce myself. I'm going to have my counterpart here, Matt, introduce himself, and we'll take it away. So how's it going, everybody out there? My name is Kevin Romeo, and I am one of the founders and the CEO of a company called Rhino out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we are a visual media production company, and I love what I do. I get to work with some of the best people on earth, and for this project that we're talking about today, I am an executive producer and a director, and I'm working on this project with my buddy Matt here, who's also part of the Rhino team. Why don't you go?
Sure, yeah. Like Kevin said, my name's Matt, and I luckily get to co-direct this film about Luke Bell. I also am just a director here at Rhino, working day to day.
And you're not just a director.
Well,
You're so much more than that.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, but on this Where You Been film, I am helping Kevin direct, and I'm also the cinematographer thus far for the project, and hopefully I get to finish it out.
Yeah, hopefully you get to keep getting your number called. So the way I look at it is, originally, like, if I'm involved in the project, I'm going to be, I don't know, I think I'm the director, because if it's something I'm passionate about and I'm going to have a lot of, like, this is how I feel the thing should go, I'm directing this baby. But documentaries are weird because so much of directing is just following the right trail and knowing where the path should lead and being the main arbiter of truth in terms of the story. So that's the way I look at what I'm trying to do, and I take that job very seriously. But I do feel like a lot of what I'm doing is more of that story direction thing, but also a lot of the producing and a lot of the just creative big picture. I've held a camera a couple times, but I look at you as more of you're also working on story, but you're more of you're driving the bus a lot in the visuals and how the story is told visually. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. You're really good at it. So cool. So a lot of people are like, okay, so maybe you've never heard of this film. You never heard of us and Rhino and all this. I'll give you a quick who Rhino is. So Rhino is essentially this visual media production company here in the Midwest. We were born out of really very blue-collar roots, didn't really know anything about filmmaking, didn't know anything about making a living as a creative in any sense. And I always like to say in my hometown, my mom delivered the mail and the rural route, and my dad worked at the grocery store in town. And I really never saw a professional career other than a school teacher in my entire, upbringing. Like, I didn't know anyone whose parents had cool jobs or anything. The coolest job was a buddy of mine's parents owned a hardware store. That was like,
that is a cool job.
They had money, compared to what I saw. But anyway, so Rhino kind of came out of this really small town blue collar work ethic. And I did go to college, but I realized like I didn't want to have anything to do with corporate world necessarily. I love small business. I love small teams. I love people who really, like, in a sense, put their nose to the grindstone and make things. And I get excited when we get to go out and, like, actually, hold cameras, hold mics, meet people, shake hands, tell a story from nothing. And that's what I get excited about. So Rhino is a company that has like a day job. We do commercial work for brands and corporate brands and things like that, documentary style work for nonprofits and foundations and things like that. And what we also try to do to keep the creative flames aglow is tell our own stories and fund our own stuff. So that's happened a few times over the last decade or so. And every time we do it, you kind of go through this imposter syndrome and like, is this really, am I good at this? Is this something people actually care about? And if you know in your gut and your heart, you're doing the right thing, you keep going, you keep pursuing it, and then it becomes real, and pretty soon you're contributing to culture in a meaningful way. So we're doing this film called Where You Been, The Odyssey and Elegy of Luke Bell. And I know that title's a little bit of a mouthful, but I was really inspired to do something that felt like big, and it created like a mythos about someone who was real and who celebrated, American folklore and storytelling. And I think of Luke as someone who really embodied the spirit of a poet. And so we want to pay honor to him through this film. So here's how this whole thing got started. I've always been a country music fan, and ever since this media enterprise of Rhino has existed, I have wanted to do something with country music and tell a story about what exactly country music is, because I've had so many arguments with people over the years where they say, I love all sorts of music except country. And then you're like, well, why don't you like country? Well, I don't like the twang, or I don't like the bunch of hillbillies, or you play the country song backwards and the dog came back and the wife came back and whatever. The truck didn't get broke, whatever. So, but my experience with country music has been that it's a deep source of truth and ethics and morality, and this undergirding, like, foundational story wavelength of America. And I grew up small town and I loved country, but something happened probably around the mid 2000s for me where I realized what was being called country didn't feel like country anymore, and I didn't recognize it. And so for a lot of years I was really, I mocked country music, and I became kind of a hater. And then I started learning about guys like Sturgill Simpson, or Jason Isbell, or even like if you go back to like Whiskey Town and that alt country scene.
That's good stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I like a lot of that stuff. But to me, it was always like it didn't fit neatly in the category of country for me either. So I had a hard time wrapping my mind around it. And but I could never make this film because I just thought at the end of the day I would always come back to this point like who the hell am I to make a film about country music? I'm not from Nashville. I'm not from any of these hotspots. I'm not from Texas. I'm from Michigan. I don't have a Southern accent. I don't have any relationships in the country scene. And then to me, everything. So that's like one track. I want to pause there and go. Then what happened was we were on a shoot down in Arizona, and you're someone who had been with Rhino for a year or two, a couple years. And we started kind of talking about how you like country and you were aware of some of these more indie artists. And I wasn't as hip to that scene, I'll say, but you were. And so one night we were just looking at media from a shoot we'd done that day. We were off site, out of state. And those are always fun, but we were just kind of like debriefing and talking. And he said, man, have you ever heard of this guy, Luke Bell? And I said, no. So we turned on this album right here that's playing next to us on Spotify. And I remember immediately just being stunned by the sound and what he was able to capture. And I think with country music, you're always kind of looking for just the real deal, authentic figure who sounds as if they're just pulled out of time and like they really lived the life in those stories. And the quality of Luke's music and songwriting and vocal style just grabbed me, and I was hooked, and I was like, this guy's the best one I've heard. And I'm not disrespecting anybody, but I was stunned at how much he nailed it with this album. And we looped that album over and over that night. And yeah, that's how I first, heard of Luke.
Yeah. I think Luke's record caught, I think, both of us in the same way. It was at different times, obviously. I'd already been listening to it very little bit, but it's an effortless thing that Luke has that I think a lot of other artists are doing in the country scene, but for some reason Luke felt the most authentic to me. He felt like something I'd never heard, even though it's stuff you've heard a million times over.
Yeah, that's the trick.
He felt like a Western artist, something that I just never got to focus on. It just slipped under my radar somehow. And I don't know, Luke opened up a box for me for sure, something new.
When I heard it, I had been getting into, I think you and I had been talking about Buck Owens a lot. And I thought, man, he sounds like Buck Owens mixed with Merle Haggard, mixed with Elvis Presley, mixed with Johnny Cash. And I just saw it. And, you follow Luke's pedigree and his story, and it does. And now that we've gotten to know his story quite a bit, we know that he does embody the West. And there isn't much Western tradition. In the 90s even, it was like, in the 90s it was country, but it wasn't Western. There was very few artists that had much to do with Western. So Luke brought that kind of Western thing, being from Wyoming, the ranching. He spent his time in Texas, in Austin. He spent his time in New Orleans. He spent his time in Nashville and all throughout the South and all over the country, really. And I don't know, maybe this seems weird, but I always think of him as like this almost mythic Paul Bunyan guy. Like,
right.
And that's what I hope we get to do with this film is, in a way, not in a way that's not real.
Yeah.
but you traveled, he drug his axe through the Grand Canyon, made the Grand Canyon, and Babe the Blue Ox.
Right. Yeah. This film is like we're finding Luke Bell in our own way throughout this film, and I want to make sure that when people watch it, they're finding the same Luke that we've gotten to find for the last year or so.
Yeah.
I love that word mythic, man. I think that's perfect for this film.
Yeah.
Because even the approach that we're taking to how we're getting the thing done and shooting it and making it look and feel, it aligns with that. And I think people are going to be, I don't know, really surprised, and I can't wait to get it done.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about why Luke Bell, who Luke was. I'll give you a little more context if you've never heard of Luke. So a lot of people came to know about Luke actually when he passed. So Luke was this mysterious figure. He put out one record. He put out a couple records, but every time he put out a new one, it was like the other ones he would almost like get rid of them all, or try to make it so that they never existed. And so I don't know what that is in a person that does that, but he did seem like he wanted to almost like rewrite the past, forget the album that I did before ever happened. And then so when he put out this album in 2016, it was interesting because probably from 2013 to 2016, in that range, he was becoming really, really good and building a name for himself and becoming a buzzworthy figure. He was written about in Rolling Stone and did these opening shows for Dwight Yoakam and Hank Williams Jr. and Willie Nelson and all this cool stuff. And he was all set actually to go on tour with Chris Stapleton, and I think it was Willie, if I remember right. He was going to go on this big tour.
It was a big act tour, yeah.
Yeah. And what ended up happening was he kind of just immediately, once the album came out, decided he didn't want to be in the spotlight anymore. And what's been interesting to learn as we've been going through this process is everyone who knew Luke all talks about how outgoing he was and how much he loved to make people laugh or bring people together. And he was like the life of the party, like just that guy who had it. He was a magnet.
Yeah, sucked the air out of the room.
Yeah. Well, like he was a magnet for women. He's a magnet for guys, though. I mean, he just like people wanted to be around him. He's a cool dude. Everybody wants to be like him or whatever. And then something happened where he started to experience some issues with mental illness, and it's kind of difficult to talk about in a very specific way, but he changed, and then he became he over time became a very shy person. He didn't want the spotlight, and he actually didn't want to be around people at all. So the whole idea that he would go up on stage and put on an act and put on a show became very difficult for him. And so people that knew Luke in the later years, they all think of him as this very shy guy. And then if you know him before, that's not the case whatsoever. Just to kind of give you a quick rundown of what we've done so far. So essentially, this whole journey started with us going down to Austin, Texas, and filming with a guy named Kyle, who runs Saving Country Music. He's also known as Trigger. You can call him Trigger or Kyle. It's either way. So we started filming with him, and we actually filmed in this really iconic location called Green Hall. It's in Green, Texas, about south of Austin a bit. And it's where George Strait came up and everything. And the more we learned about it, I'd never really heard of it, but being in there, you realize you're in this like legendary Texas dance hall. So
that was unbelievable. That was so cool.
That was honestly a career highlight, just being there and talking to Trigger. So, so we started with that, and he really gave us a lot of great meat and potatoes for a story about country music and authenticity. And then we talked about Luke a bit, and he got us connected with Luke's family. And so when the timing felt right, we reached out via Kyle to Luke's family, had a conversation, shared with them how much we'd love to tell Luke's story in a way that's reverent and redemptive and beautiful, but also honest and real. And so from there, we filmed out in Cody, and kind of between Cody and Shell, where Luke's family lives. And then we filmed in Tucson with Matt Kinman, who was a good friend of Luke, and was with him for the last 5-6 years of his life. And we went all around Tucson. And then we filmed out in Cody again in the summertime and caught some ranching footage and met some more family members and did some more interviews. And then we did a big trip down to Nashville later this summer and had a blast. So we got to film out at a lot of the spots where Luke would be and some of his former band members and close friends of his. And we had a just an amazing time. So
yeah, I think one fun note that people watching might want to know is that this film's been pretty. We've been working hard to get this film done, but it's mostly just been you and I. And just Nashville was the first trip that we brought. We actually were a 4-person crew for that for the first time. So I think that's kind of a nice insight into the film, just show how bare bones this thing really is. Like, we're really chasing this story down. Every single trip is opening up new doors. Things are happening that we don't expect. We're meeting people that we don't expect. Like, Silas was such a random throw in there that turned out to be such a great piece of the film that I think everyone's going to love. And I don't know. Every time we go on a trip, more doors open. But I think it's really, it's nice to know that we're like really digging our own heels in to get this done. We're not backed by any, corporation or thing that's trying to make this film into something it's not. We're really just like, credit to Kevin doing all this hard work of knocking down doors and sending emails and just trying to get in front of people.
I know what it feels like to have this deep sense, like, in my soul that I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do. Like, the thing that I was actually created to do, there's a purpose to my life, and it's to do this thing. And so I actually felt that very strongly when we started the media company, because I really was a weird kid, and I had a bunch of weird skill sets that never really made sense for me to go into a specific direction of the corporate job or trade school. But then when we started doing media and storytelling and taking being a photographer, I went, man, this is everything I like in a weird little mixed up bag. And I felt that for a lot of years. And over the years, you get busy. I have 4 kids now, and life feels like, okay, I have a job. I love my job. I wouldn't trade it, but I don't feel that same rush of like everything I'm doing is like right place, right time. With this project, it renewed that sense for me that this is right place, right time. It's like the tip of the spear of doing something meaningful. And so that's been a wonderful gift through the process of doing this. And I think it comes from taking uncomfortable steps and, knocking on someone's door that has never met you and trying to just share your heart with them. And really, that's one thing about this film is it is kind of, that's probably the hardest thing about the film for me, is that knocking on doors, sharing your heart, hearing their heart, and that emotional like toll it kind of takes. So if anything, I truly enjoy this journey, but if anything, and Carol said this to me recently, she's happy we're making this film, but she said she'll be happy when we're done, because it'll feel like okay, we can put this story out and that'll be that, and people can watch it, and then I don't have to dig it back up again almost in a way. And I feel that just being in my seat, every time I reach out to someone, I want to learn a little bit about their relationship with Luke if they had one. And it's sometimes very emotional. And you almost have to be in a therapist position sometimes. And I'm certainly not trained as a therapist, so it takes a lot out of you. Yeah. So I'll be honest, I love the thrill of Kickstarter. I love the fact that you get to put it out there, and it takes a lot of nerve to even do it. And it's like once you press go, there's no turning back. And so that whole aspect of Kickstarter is fun. And I've done Kickstarter 3 times, and I've had 3 projects funded. And so in a way, I feel like I understand Kickstarter, but every time we do it, once we push go, I get this pit in my stomach that's like, oh shoot, now I have like a lot of work in front of me.
Right.
And it's weird because I want people to support our film. I want people to be interested in the film. I want this film to change their life in a positive way and be a slice of culture that is good for society and good for anyone who watches it. But with Kickstarter, you are kind of asking people to fund something they've never really experienced yet. They can watch the trailer we cut, but in essence, we don't have that much more to give right now. It's a big promise. It's like, hey, we promise we're going to make this film, and we promise it's going to be great, and we promise the merch that comes with it you'll be happy with, and we promise that I'm not going to break a leg on the way to getting this done or whatever. And there's no way we don't make this film, but it is a lot of almost like writing IOUs to everyone and saying like, get behind us, please.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which we're thrilled with everyone that's jumped on board so far. I mean, we got a long way to go.
Yeah, we do.
And it's stressful. But like Kevin said, I think the main point being, like, we're going to make the Where You Been film no matter what. Doesn't matter. But this Kickstarter community that's being built around it and watching all the people that are showing up for Luke is a really cool, motivating, driving force, I think. And I'm really hopeful that, you know, anyone that's helped us out, sharing posts, trying to get in front of other people, we thank you so much. And I hope that we can get even more of that. You know, like I just want to create this buzz around Luke. I think he has it. You know, we just got to find Luke's audience. We got to build Luke's community, and so that's what we need everyone's help with. That's already been helping us out so far.
Well, it's not only that we need to find Luke's community, but we need to find people that care about Luke, but also care about a film about Luke, think that we're worthy of doing it.
Right.
You know, and they really want to get alongside of us. So it's been a thrill to see all the people getting behind it and excited. And yeah, we do have a long way to go, but we're going to get there. We'll find a way.
Yeah, we can do it.
So, yeah. So just a few quick factoids, I guess, about the film, what or how we're raising money and stuff. So we're doing this Kickstarter. We decided to set the goal amount at $40,000, which it may sound like a lot to you. It may sound like nothing to you. Frankly, you know, it really is a small amount of money when it comes to making films. I actually, you know, you see films get made all the time that are in the documentary space, easily have budgets over $1 million. And you know, again, that might sound crazy, but a lot of work goes into making any feature-length documentary or narrative film or anything like that. There's a lot of travel involved. There's a lot of people involved, and so the people working on this film are all paid. They're not doing it, you know, I mean, they are doing it because they're passionate about it, but they're getting paid. And so, you know, all that time, you want to make sure you're paying people appropriately, and travel fees are obviously. There's airfare, there's gas, there's fuel, or food and lodging and all that stuff. And then there's just costs that go into filmmaking in general. Like, we don't typically shoot on film, but we actually are probably going to buy some 8mm film and kind of play around with film. Our cameras are all very professional, high gear. So jump in whenever. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other thing, too, that filmmaking costs money from a very practical sense like that, but also, like, I might be jumping ahead a little here, but we are trying to get as much Luke Bell music in the film as possible, and we're trying to do interesting things, trying to bring as much value and story to this story as possible, and especially, like we've said before, like, we're chasing down someone who's no longer with us, so we're having to come up with all these creative ways to make things happen and make this story make sense, to be honest with you.
Yes.
There's a lot of things we literally just can't show, that there's no photos of, it's just memories, you know? It's the idea that we have to fully grasp and kind of, like, I don't even know how to say it, soak ourselves in it to the point that we can, okay, this is the way that we see it, and this is the way that we think Luke's family or Luke's friends would understand it, but still have it rooted in truth. So we're doing all these fun techniques, like you said, 8mm, to try to bridge that gap between, you know, the historic side of things and the created side of things.
Yeah, that's great. I couldn't have said it better. So in terms of what needs to be done to complete the film, this one's always a little bit tough to answer, but, you know, everyone kind of wants to know, like, how far along are you? How much more do you have to go? And so the truth is, we don't have, it's not like there's a spreadsheet and there's all the shoot dates just perfectly mapped out. We have more of a fuzzy sense of what we think we need. But when you're doing a project like this, again, go back to what I said earlier, I'm not driving at any ideological perspective or goal. I'm trying to tell Luke's story. So when we go meet someone new and they tell us a new story we hadn't heard, it's like, that opens up a window into the story and the mind of Luke. Might we need to go off and go to that location to get that story now, or talk to that person?
How far do you need to go?
How far do you go? Because you could truly film this for a long, long time. I mean, any human life that, you know, you're trying to tell truly, there's so many ways you can do it. And with Luke, it's even more so. But I think what on the flip side, it's also really important that we're in this seat of deciding, well, at some point we're putting out this movie. So you just kind of have to say to yourself, like, can I make the right film, put a date on the calendar, and say, can we have it done by then? And so it's a delicate dance. You know, it'd be great to just, I always like to say that creativity requires a box. If you're given no parameters and you had all the money in the world, I would argue that you probably have less likely of a chance to get a film done because there's nothing confining you and nothing that you're working against. So timelines and budgets all help us do that. So we're going to film with more people who knew Luke. For example, we're going to be down in Arizona before this month is over, filming with Luke's uncle, Dan, who is a rancher and who is very close to Luke, spent a lot of time with him, and it's just awesome stories to tell. And we've had a few phone calls. But we're going to go out and film with Dan, and we don't know what that'll open up. But, you know, there's opportunities like that all over the place. Every time we meet, you know, Luke was very well connected in the music industry. He had friendships with some of the biggest names, some of the biggest acts and stars that you would never think that a guy who, you know, maybe you hadn't heard of, but he's connected to such big players, and they not only knew him or casually or met him at a party once, they were friends, and they would hang out and they would talk about life or music together or have fun stories that you'd, you know, love to hear. So
right, I feel like we've even gotten so many of those shared with us just with posting this trailer online and having the Instagram account and having an email attached to the website and all that. I feel like we've gotten so many different stories of Luke that, you know, just small glimpses of where he was at the time, the types of things he was doing, videos of him playing live shows. The guy is incredible at playing live. Like, it does not matter at what state of his life he was in, how he was feeling.
He found a way to be his charming self.
Yeah. I feel like
when it was
with the guitar, he it was like his safety or something, even in the hardest parts of his life.
Yeah. And
it's been really cool to see that, and I feel like that's going to be a great theme in this movie. But
yeah,
he's always just so damn good.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of our probably our greatest regrets and shames is neither one of us ever saw Luke live.
We tried,
and yeah, I mean, just by the time we heard of him, he wasn't playing very much.
Right.
And so anyone who saw him in the last 5 or 6 years knows that they're very, very lucky to have seen that. So as far as timeline goes, the film will be released. Right now we're aiming at having our screenings and kind of the film start to get seen by the initial wave of people who are going to see the film in October of 2024 this year.
Can you break that down? What's our screenings? What's your goal with the film in general as far as screenings go?
Yeah, so I think I can't answer for every filmmaker out there, but I think in general, you want your film to be seen by the most people as humanly possible. And as I see it, I want to have the first run of screenings be for essentially the true friends and family and fans of Luke. And so we have this idea that we're going to do, you know, the number one, that special first eyeballs to watch the film happen in Cody, Wyoming, where Luke's from, and hopefully get the whole town out to see this story about someone who, and I know they're proud of Luke. You know, the people of Cody are happy that Luke represented Cody so well and feel like he told their story in a really cool way. So we want to have the first screening be in Cody, Wyoming. Right up next to that, we want to be able to have screenings in Nashville, where he had a big impact and a lot of family and friends. And then Austin, same thing, where he first started his musical career, really, or where he left home, left college, moved to Texas, just boom, moved to Austin, started learning how to really go at it with music. But we also want to have one here in Kalamazoo where Rhino is. We have a lot of, you know, friends and family here who love filmmaking, love the stuff we do, and are really excited about Luke's story. So we're going to do the biggest possible screening we can here in Kalamazoo. And then from there, we don't know. There may be other locations that open up. We know Luke has, you know, fans everywhere. Even I think someone commented online that he's got a big following in Sweden. Which,
Netherlands, Sweden, something like that.
I don't know. You know, Sweden, Netherlands, it's all over there somewhere. We'd love to come see you. So
right.
maybe someday.
Yeah, I think even aside from just these like more intimate maybe screenings that I feel like these are screenings that are going to be large events. Like we'll probably be at them, right?
Yeah.
I think the goal would be we'd be at all those, but I think ultimately as many places as we could screen the film as possible would be incredible. We'd love to bring a screening to your town if there's a way to do that. So we just haven't navigated exactly what that looks like.
Yeah.
So,
and I think at the end of the day, if you have more money, you can market the film more. And that's why you know about big budget Hollywood films, because there's a lot of marketing dollars that get people out to the theaters, right? And I will just say that for me, getting in a room full of people, some that you know, some that you don't, and sharing this communal experience of turning your gaze and your attention at everybody looking at the same thing, totally silent, listening and experiencing a story together, is a wonderful thing. And I don't want to see that go away in society. And I know that like with movies in general, you got big people like Tom Cruise and some of the big filmmakers like really pushing like, hey, let's not lose that. Just because you can watch stream stuff at home doesn't mean you shouldn't go out to the movie theater and experience it on the big screen. So those are kind of a sacred thing for me, especially when it's something you've made. I can't describe it. I really can't put it into words because we've gotten the chance and the privilege to do that a few times with documentaries. I cannot wait for those screenings when we get to be in the room with people that knew Luke and just feel the energy in the room and feel the mood. And if moments are intended to make people smile, to see the room light up or the depth of emotion and the, all that's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be hard to beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never got to experience that. This is my first time getting to do that. Up. Yeah. Buckle up.
When your kids were born, it's way better. No, I'm just kidding. I got 4 kids. Those are the top 4, but other than that, yeah, movies. So I'll say this, in addition to our screenings, there's a good chance we want to get this into some film festivals. Sometimes it can be a little tricky with film festivals that, they want exclusivity or they want to be the first time something's been screened. We'll navigate those waters, but in general, we do think this would be this film would perform well at film festivals. And so we're going to try to figure out exactly how that goes, because you kind of time it right and you got to get into the right ones and all that. But beyond that, we do hope to get it onto a digital platform of some sort, whether it's just Apple and you can download the film, purchase it, or if we can get onto a streaming platform of some sort for a while. Yeah, we'll navigate as we go. At the end of the day, we want as many people as possible to see it.
Right on.
Yeah.
So we got to put a post out on Instagram and ask for some questions from supporters of Luke, and we've kind of distilled them into a list of, 7 or 8. A lot of consistent questions were asked. People are pretty excited about a certain few things, so we're going to touch on those here really quickly. So
cool. So Lauren Canning asked, how much more filming is needed? Are there any roadblocks besides money that you've run into? And so the short answer on how much more filming is needed, I would say at least as much as we've already done and then some. So we need to do more interviews. We need to do more B-roll capture of real people doing real things. And then we need to do our narrative scenes that kind of embody stories of Luke that we can't tell any other way than just kind of almost narratively, metaphorically creating them in a way that makes a remarkable film. So
right, yeah, I feel like we're still in the phase of capturing the word content, and laying it out to make sure that we have the story. I think we're still looking at a timeline that it just isn't complete yet, right. Even though I feel like we kind of know it. You could make your own assumptions, I guess, with what we have, but we still have our due diligence to do to fill out that timeline, and then from there we get to kind of do the fun part of, filling out the rest to make it into, a piece of art that's interesting and fun to watch and exciting,
Yeah, and you just made me think of this too. I think one of the things that, if you know Luke's story, this won't surprise you, but because of the way that Luke's mental health eroded, or however you'd say it, but deteriorated, it is a difficult thing for some people to open up about, especially when you need to hear from them what happened. And that they're very sensitive, and that they really they don't want to say it because people don't want to look like they're being opportunistic or not being respectful of Luke. And so it's a very fine line. But one thing, if we can ask of anyone who, wants to share, or anyone we talk to, it really is like, you have to remember we're serving Luke's memory and Luke's family by telling an honest story. And that's where it goes back to that whole trust thing, like people trusting us not to exploit Luke, but lift him up and hold a mirror up to what happened. But you can't do that if you don't hear the real story too. So it's a little bit of a dance, but so far we've been able to really get in with the people that knew Luke best at that time and hear those stories.
Right. We're in a very prized seat, and we know that, and we're really thankful for everyone taking the time to sit with us, looking us in the eye and just talking for a while like that. You know what I mean? Because that really could go. That's why I just feel like it goes back to alignment. Like I feel like we're in the right spot, the right place, at the right time with the right people, and gaining the right amount of trust so that we can clear this up in a way. It's hard to approach, and we're really, really thankful for everyone just being open with us, being honest, sharing the stories that are the hard ones to tell.
Yeah.
Every time that happens, this thing becomes more and more real, and just trusting us that we're going to use it to support Luke's story and not to do anything else.
Yeah. I would say besides, obviously the currency of money and pay for stuff, just getting access to things. The music business is interesting. I am learning more and more that it's hard sometimes to get a straight answer on something as simple as like, can we use this song, or can we use Luke's image in this way? And everyone's working with us in the way that they can, but it's always like, am I asking the right person this question? Is it the PR person? Is it the A&R person? Is it the marketing? Is it the license? The lawyer? Who do I need to ask this question of? So, even though we are in this official seat and we do have the blessing of the family and everything going on, it is sometimes a little bit almost confusing to know, who do I have to ask to get a straight answer about this or that? So, if you're a music lawyer and you know people, really connections are huge. So if you know people, we know you, hit us up.
Absolutely.
So cool. Next question.
Great question.
Yeah. So Ellis for Relis. I don't know who's Relis. Ellis is for Relis. How do we know who Relis is?
Can you look up Relis?
We need to Google that. Okay. So your question was, will there be any screenings in Colorado? I'd love that.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think there's a real good shot that there will be a screening of the film in Colorado. The more people that ask, the more likely it becomes.
Right.
So, cool.
And as we navigate those waters, if you live in a town and you'd like to have a screening and there becomes a way to do that, let's stay in contact. Let's make one happen.
Or if you own a small boutique hotel and you want to put us up for a night with our wives.
Absolutely.
That would be fantastic, because our wives have spent a lot of nights alone for us to make this film. So we'd like to pay them back. Yeah. So, approximately how long? Oh, Alex DC43 says, approximately how long do you guys estimate the film to be? I think 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say it's a full-length feature film documentary. It's as long as it needs to be to tell Luke's story without having anything extra,
You want to end and have people go, I wish I had a little more.
Right. I think that 90-minute mark is about as good as it gets, if we can pull that off. But it is going to be a real deal full-length feature film.
Zachary_White says, will it be made if we don't make it the fundraiser? I've been spreading the word to hit the quota.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Appreciate it.
Honestly, here's the thing with Kickstarter. I put out a video recently on my personal Facebook about this, so this might be redundant, but right now we have about 140 people that back the film. I would love to see that number somewhere around like 800, which sounds kind of crazy, but I don't need, while yes, if a billionaire or, sound like Bernie Sanders, a millionaire or a billionaire comes along and gives us a lot of money, I will be very thankful for that. But the reality is, it would be better if a lot of people give us 30, 50, $100 or something like that, because the more people that get behind it, that really looks good for our chances at film festivals and other type of distributor opportunities, and people that are interested in the film and screening the film. They want to see there's a lot of people interested in Luke's story, and that we have a winner. At the end of the day, if we're close or if we're within a margin, I'm going to throw in my own money to get us there, because you don't want to have to relaunch a Kickstarter. You don't want to go tell everyone, hey, the tickets you purchased, we're going to have to buy those again some other way through our website. We want to make the thing get funded. But really, I want as many people as possible to get behind it and the momentum to be real and organic and authentic. So,
right.
Short answer is no way we don't make this film, though.
Right.
I'm not trying to mess up the Kickstarter. We're making this film no matter what, come hell or high water.
Right. Cool.
Okay, multiple people asked the question, is there a soundtrack or playlist for the film? Will it contain any unreleased tracks from Luke? So in the title, Where You Been, the Odyssey and Elegy of Luke Bell, elegy is a word that kind of embodies like a song for someone who's no longer with us. So in a way, that was very intentional. And we have had some really beautiful performances from people that knew Luke really, really well, like J.P. Harris, Matt Kinman, Pat Reedy, Luke's sister Jane. And so music is a big part of this film. And we haven't yet decided how we'll do that, though. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do that. But in general, we want this film to feel like a celebration of music, of Luke's music, and just authentic country music, too.
Yeah, I think in a really organic way, we've been capturing unexpected moments with these great musicians playing something that they just pulled out of their pocket that was kind of meant for Luke in a lot of ways. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Most of these things we didn't plan.
Well, we had a plan.
Yeah, we had a plan and
different.
threw it out the window because it never worked.
Yeah.
But people have been just showing up, and like, I swear we've just been getting to the right point with people to make them feel comfortable to just like really try to do something special for Luke. And I think every single time it's worked. And it's been like, I'm really excited for, I don't know how we're going to use them in the film, but I can't wait for people to see some of the performances we have with covers of just some classic tunes, some originals by people, like just really, really cool stuff.
Well, Pat Reedy, we filmed with Pat out in Cody, who just happened to be coming through Cody and doing a show when we were hoping to be out there. And so we had said, well, hey, Pat, could you maybe do one of Luke's songs? And he did it for us. And you could tell he was just, you could tell looking at it, he's like, I don't know, this is okay. And then we said, well, do you have a song make more sense for you? And he said, well, I have a song I wrote about Luke. And so we said, do that. Let's do that.
Do that.
And so we did that. And then it was like immediately the tone shifted to like, you could feel it. Like we're kind of looking like this song is, it's so different when you hear someone's authentic composition they wrote for someone they loved and cared about, and then they perform it in a way that's earnest. And that was awesome. So
it was awesome. Yeah.
As far as unreleased music, I don't know. We might be in a state where we can't either confirm nor deny. I can say that Luke did have recordings that haven't seen the light of day. We have an opportunity for some of those recordings to be heard through the story, the Odyssey and the Elegy of Luke Bell. And I guess that's all I can say.
Right. We need your support on Kickstarter to make sure that we can get as much of Luke's music in this film as possible, because we want to bring every little piece of the pie that we possibly can.
I like that.
How about that?
I like that.
So keep supporting the Kickstarter. Great question.
Great
We're
question.
really looking forward to knowing the answer to.
So Johnny Tucker said, is there any music in the film other than Luke's? So yes, because we're going to have, like I mentioned earlier, J.P. Harris, Pat Reedy, and others performing music about Luke, like kind of homage pieces in that elegy kind of format. But anytime you do a film, we're going to pull tracks. It's not like the only music. We haven't set a rule for ourselves where it's like only music that Luke wrote or about Luke is going to be in this. There's going to be like tonal pieces and kind of cinematic score stuff that'll work its way into the film for sure. I love, we haven't really figured this out yet, but I love like old spaghetti Western, like whistle tracks and stuff that embodies the American West and kind of the folklore of it all, but I don't see that stuff not making an appearance.
Right. Yeah. I think we have a lot of plans and a lot of ideas that we just have to start laying this film down and cross the road when we get there.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I don't know. The one thing I wanted to touch on and answer, do you guys want a soundtrack? Like, is that something we can do? I'd love to come out with a way to put out like something, even if it's just a playlist maybe, or a way that we could put out some of this stuff for people to listen to it without just having the film in their pocket. I think that's a great idea. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be amazing to know, because what we have are these, and it's almost like we didn't really realize we were doing this, but the recordings we have are one-time deals, sitting down with JP Harris on the front step of his house with a cigarette in his guitar, singing like a one-shot, one-take song.
It's awesome. That
just blew our minds, and that's the only recording of it. And yeah, we have those. And
Matt Kinman sitting in Bisbee.
Yeah.
Outside of what's the bar called? Elmo's?
St. Elmo's.
St. Elmo's. That one is so good.
That's really
a great track.
Beautiful.
I can't wait for them to hear that.
So there's a bar down basically on the border of U.S. and Mexico where Luke and Matt used to go to get away, kind of thing. It's this really interesting little town.
Yeah, Luke always used to say, "Can you take me to Bisbee?"
Matt, yeah, take me to Bisbee. He wanted to get away from all the people, and they take me out of
right.
Get me out of Tucson. So, but yeah, Matt sang a song on this curb, essentially right outside the bar, where he said Luke used to love to sit here and pull his guitar, play for the home people walking around, and to know that Matt's in that spot singing a song that, like, from the heart about his love and relationship with Luke, it's a beautiful song. So, yeah, there's some good stuff.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of opportunity for that kind of stuff. We just don't know where. We're too early in the process. We're still figuring out how to make the film.
Yeah.
So that would be awesome.
Man, that would be amazing. So, last question on our list here from Ken Volta. These are awesome names, by the way. Or Ken Voita. Never mind, that's kind of cool. Ken Volta. You should change your name to Ken Volta.
Cool, Ken.
So, said, can we hear the earliest Luke Bell songs? So, this is an interesting question, because I go, what do you think the earliest Luke Bell songs are? Because there's actually several instances of... So, Luke put out his first record, which was, I think, just self-titled Luke Bell. And he did that down in Austin, and he did a Kickstarter. Did he do a Kickstarter for that one?
I think that was before was the Kickstarter for Don't Mind If I Do?
Yeah, it was. But I think there might have been another one.
Oh, well, this was the predecessor to that record.
Yeah, so if you've heard of Don't Mind If I Do, which was like kind of the lost album.
Sought after.
Highly sought after. Can't find it anywhere. There's another album before that that's just called Luke Bell. And the style of it is very different. So when we first popped it into the CD player and we got back into Michigan, because Carol gave us a copy, and there's a few tracks on there that you go, okay, that sounds like pretty close to Luke in the style that we all know and love. But then there's a bunch of tracks you're like, whoa, this is really different. And at first it's a little jarring because it's quite a bit different. But actually, fun fact, I have the CD in my truck, and I take my kids to school every day, and we listen to that CD all the time. And there's like a handful of tracks in there my kids just adore, and they know all the words, and my girls sing it, and it's like really, we love that album.
I adore them too. I'm like, they grew on me in a strange way. I didn't dislike them at first. It's just not what you expect.
It really throws you though.
But you could tell he was finding his way, but he was also just like, he was running down a different path like he's done a million times over.
Yep.
And he hit it hard, and he did a good job with it,
Yep.
It's just different Luke.
Yeah, and that album actually, so somebody who's pretty big in the country scene now, but Paul Coffin, he's a bigger name now, but he was the executive producer on that CD. And yeah, he's somebody we'd like to talk to too, actually. I kind of forgot about Paul.
Yeah, Paul, if you see this,
let's do some cocaine
send us a
country
DM.
dance. No, I'm just like, I don't do drugs. Paul Coffin, we love your music. We'd love to talk.
So are we going to have any of that early stuff in the movie?
I think we can. If I understand right, we can. I'd love to.
Me too.
There's a song called King of Dollar Bills that is super fun, infectious song. And we actually have a old home video of Luke singing that for a small crowd of old people out in Jackson, Wyoming, that his cousin Silas put it up on YouTube. That's just,
he's just crushing it.
Yeah, he's just living his life, and it's awesome.
You know what I would love to see is that King of Dollar Bills. If we got that, we go one step further than remastering. Like, get some of Luke's players from Nashville to just open that track up and just make it into something. Because it's a driver. It's a driving song. It'd be fun to watch some players just hit it even harder than they did, and just see what happened.
Yeah.
But just, you know what I mean? Take it into the maybe Luke's the next evolution of Luke in a way.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to see.
That'd be amazing. So, yeah. But then, honestly, what I was going to say is, so there's that album. There's actually, when Luke first started playing, he played with his best friend, Tony Brown, who's in the film. And him and Tony had a band with a couple other dudes I haven't met yet or know about, but it was called Fast Luke and the Lead Heavy. And it was kind of like more of a blues rock kind of jam sound.
Loud.
Yeah, real loud. But you can find, I found it on YouTube. There's like one song on YouTube. So if you're a YouTuber, go look it up, go find it. So
it would be fun to use a portion of like that song or another one of those in the film just to cover every single moment of Luke,
There's things that I think about like that a lot where I'd love to do stuff like that, but I always go, I want to make sure I don't get twisted and say, it's fun to do that, but it doesn't serve the story.
Right. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's always like, ultimately got to serve the audience and make an amazing film for everybody. So
right.
Yeah. So that's everybody's questions. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to make this film. Like we've said, we are extremely humbled, grateful, thankful that we're in the seat we're in and getting to tell Luke's story and getting to put something into the culture that means so much to us and means so much to the people that knew Luke or fans of his. Thanks for checking out this video. Please, if you can like, subscribe to the channel, or to the Instagram account, like and subscribe, smash the button and all that stuff. What the kids do.
Yeah.
And share the Kickstarter and encourage people that love country music and want to see great art celebrated. Share the Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah. Echoing everything Kevin said. We want to bring as much of Luke to you guys as possible, and you guys supporting that Kickstarter is a huge step in that process. Like we said, every track we want to put in the film, it costs money to license. There's simple things like that where it's just building this community around Luke. Like you said, you want to get 800 people to support that thing. That would be incredible. I love that goal. And the more attention and momentum we can build from that, the more that we're going to be able, more value I think we're going to be able to bring you guys. We're going to make the best film we possibly can make no matter what. But every little bit of that counts. So thank you guys again, and let's make the movie.
Let's make the movie. Thank you.